Hi. Hi, my name is Angie Rothkamp. I'm a licensed professional counselor and I work with Nippenberg, Patterson, Langley, and Associates. I'm here today as a counselor for over 20 years. I worked in public schools, elementary, middle, and high school. But more so, now that I've been in private practice, I have done homeschooling for the past 12 years. And so that's what our topic is today. What is a realistic approach to homeschooling? So what I want to say, first of all, about homeschooling is what you all are doing out there today is not homeschooling. This is what I would dub maybe crisis schooling or COVID-19 schooling or quarantine schooling. This is different than any homeschooling I've ever known in my life. And so part of that is because homeschoolers enter into the process willingly for some conviction that they have of one-on-one education or faith or something like that. But what you are entering is not a choice. We're being thrown into it. So one of the themes of my day is I want you to lower your expectations about what you're doing, and I want you to have grace for yourself, because this is a difficult time just across the board, whether you've homeschooled for 12 years or you've homeschooled for the past 2 weeks. So here's a misnomer. No homeschooler stays home all the time. They're out in the community. So that sense of loss that all of us are experiencing is doubled in our kids, where they've been pulled away from their schooling as well. And so what you're doing is harder. It's an extra layer on top of just schooling at the home. So it's been thrust upon you. We're going to roll with it. But today, my hope and goal for you is to walk away with a couple tips and tools about how you can make this a smoother transition for both you and your children, to make the best out of a circumstance that's just really hard for all of us. So here's what we're going to do first. We're going to talk about developing patterns and routines versus a schedule. That will be the first segment. The second segment will be about connection over correction. Then our third segment will be about some additional resources and a little bit of question and answer. You can submit some questions and I'll be happy to answer those, but I've also kind of compiled a few just from over time of what people want to know about homeschooling. So those will be the three categories. So I'm going to launch right into the first category, which is what are those chunks of time that we need to meet during the day? What I said is patterns and routines. Our brains like patterns and routines. And during this kind of COVID crisis, right now, all of our brains are a bit hijacked. We're all anxious. We're all wondering what the next thing is. Now we've kind of gotten this stay-at-home order for the rest of the school year. So we know we're homeschooling till the end of the school year. That actually, even though it raises anxiety in one level, it helps us to know what to expect. So that's kind of that first segment of homeschooling. Your kids need to know what to expect. And you can't just fly by the seat of your pants every single day. So what I would think about it is in chunks, not a schedule. We don't need to replicate what the public school is doing. We don't need to sound the bell at 8:55 and have the seat start at 9 o'clock or you're tardy. No need for that. What you want to do is just start your day right. So I would greet the morning. And in fact, this was, as I chunked the time into 6 segments over the last couple days, one of the things that occurred to me is that first greet the morning is probably the most important. For me, greet the morning, my cup of coffee, it's, my Bible time, it's my quiet time before everybody's up. I've got teenagers. For those of you with elementary school kids, you maybe are getting your time a little bit differently, but I have kids who sleep till 9 o'clock, so I can get my quiet time before they're even out of bed. But you need to greet the morning yourself so that you can greet your kids and get them started. And then give them a greet the morning. Give them a fresh hello, a smile to start their day. It's a rough time. They need your smile more than everything. That is one thing that the public school teachers have always given them, well, as much as they can. They give you a smile. So greet your kid with a smile. Then we're going to chunk it into 6 sections. The first one is learning time. That's probably the biggest pressure. That's probably, if you're listening to this, that's what you're saying is, how do I conquer this learning time? So that's what we want to do. We want to be able to conquer this. So you get to place that learning time when you're available. That's the number one thing, is you need to be available. If you have an elementary school kid, they're not going to get their learning time done without you. You're going to probably need to be supervising it, be available for questions that they have. If they're navigating technology, you're going to have to help them with that. But you want to be available. So do not schedule. I'm talking about it first, but if you're not available until 1 o'clock, if you're not available until 5 o'clock, that's when their learning time is. So put that chunk of time when you're available. Also, you want to create a space. A space cues the brain, this is what I do in this space. So that's school does that for them. They sit in the desk and they know they're ready. They have to be ready. Well, you can do that in your home. Right now I'm sitting at my dining room table. This becomes my daughter's workspace, but we have alternate workspaces. So she's also got a desk in her bedroom. My son prefers to sit on his bed and be a little more sprawled out, but you get to decide where your space is, but do create a space that's for their learning. And then at the end of that learning time, put that stuff up in a neat little stack and you're done with it for the day. So it's not something hovering over your head nonstop. Okay. For younger kids, that learning time, smaller chunks. Your older kids, it might be 2 hours. It might only be 2 hours, but you need to chunk it for smaller. If you have an elementary school kid, you're talking 20-minute chunks for those learning times with lots of brain breaks in between, movement, snacks. You might even do a prize box at the end of the week if they've met their learning expectations, but you want to chunk it in reasonable chunks for that particular kiddo. So we have learning time. The second one we have is outside time. Everybody should be getting outside time. We all need the fresh air. We all need the vitamin D. I just want to encourage you to go outside with your kids or send them out to the backyard. But the outside time, get creative. This is when you want to order the pogo stick you never wanted to order before. My daughter's missing her soccer season. I ordered her a soccer ladder so she could do some drills out there. You can have your kids make Ninja Warrior courses, but their outside time, this is one time we can beef that time up. It's spring, it's beautiful out. There's no reason we can't get outside. But you want to have a huge chunk of time for that. Can be broken up in 3 different segments. It can be, a solid hour before lunch, whatever that looks like for you guys. It's not just schools that do recess. Everybody needs that. Okay, the third one, curiosity time. So your learning time actually should probably take less time right now than it has before, which means we have this big open space of time that's not being taken up by activities, after school activities, is not being taken up by other things that they're doing. So you have a huger chunk of time to do curiosity time. Talk to your kids. What do they want to do? What do they always want to do? Do they want to pick up an instrument that they haven't picked up in a while? Do they want to play with when my kids were little, the recycle bin was like a mecca for them. They would pull that out and create all kinds of things. I would give them scraps of wood to pound nails in the backyard so they can have some curiosity time. As your kids get older, that changes a little bit. They're maybe, they're more socially motivated by their peers and they don't have that as much, but they can certainly be looking up things that they're interested in, whether it's something for college that they're interested in doing, or maybe they want to try their hand at gardening this year for the first time. So get something curiosity time. But here's what I'm going to tell you. You need your curiosity time too. So you are going to need something during this time to fuel you. So you might have a less amount of time of curiosity time than your kids do, but I would encourage you to do some of that. Pick up that instrument. For myself, it's a guitar. I had a guitar since I was 30, and I can tell you it's been collecting dust. So I'm committed to try to pick that up and get some calluses on my finger again. So curiosity time. That actually, in the homeschooler mantra, is equally, if not more important than the learning time, because curiosity time is self-invested learning time. All right, chore time. This is one thing that I feel like homeschoolers do quite well. They are navigating their kids to get involved in the laundry. They're getting them to get involved in meal making and things like that. There's no better time for that to happen than now. Right now, your kiddos are home more, which means they're creating messes more. I've heard that from several people. My home is messier than it's ever been. Yes, but you also have more hands on deck than you've ever had. And so tasking them with chores is going to be really critical for 2 reasons. A, because your house needs to be clean. B, because they need to feel like they're contributing, that they're doing something for the family. And so I would encourage you to set up it doesn't have to be really regimented, but a daily kind of task list, whether it's Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, dishwasher, laundry. This is a time to teach some of those life skills that your schedule hasn't allowed for because you have been going. So they can do that. Give them some opportunity to make the meal, to plan the meal. Have a kid set the meal for the week. Lord knows we're not running to the grocery store every other day anymore. So that means you have to plan ahead. Let them help you plan ahead. Gives them an investment. So chore time isn't just a consequence for bad behavior. It's an opportunity to feel part of a family and to help them launch those skills, especially as they're getting older, to be able to do that. But as young as 5 can go around and dust. Now you might end up dusting after them, but meanwhile they're learning that life skill, and that's beautiful. This is a time to do that. Okay, so far we have learning time, we've got outside time, we've got curiosity time, and we have chore time. The fifth one, quiet time. Oh, right? We all want quiet time. So this, when your kids were younger, is their nap time. But usually this is what I hear from parents is that, oh, my kid went down for a nap. I raced around the house and did the 20 things, and then they were up before I got to sit down and do my quiet time. So when quiet time starts for your family, try to make that a time that you can have at least a half an hour. Make them have an hour, you have a half an hour quiet time and a half an hour running around. But take your quiet time first if you can manage. But that quiet time is a regeneration time. It's a time for them to do a reset. For the first time, they have this opportunity to really relax. Even when we weren't in COVID-19, for parents, I often talked about a reset time after school. Some of it was outside, but some of it was inside. So the quiet time can be outside, but the key is it needs to be alone. They can be reading a book on a hammock. They can be raking through their Legos in their bedroom. They can be, basically, it's anything that doesn't involve their need for you, because the quiet time, and you're teaching them that I, as an adult, need that quiet time too. And then take that time for yourself. It can be journaling, it can be drawing. Some of it can overlap with the curiosity time, something they want to be doing with that. But you want that time to reset as a family because you're all together for 24 hours. So even if 10 of that is sleeping, that's a massive amount of time that you're together outside of that. And so I would just encourage you to do that. All right. So after quiet time, this is going to sound a bit ironic, but the other category is family time. Haha, you're saying, I have only family time, Angie. What am I supposed to be doing here? But this family time looks a little bit different during this lifetime. I don't want you just coexisting during family time. I want you engaging. So the family time, I want you to think about playing a game. I mean, I have a host of games on my shelf, and we've been trying to pull out one every couple of days, a new game. There's a puzzle set up on my coffee table. So we're doing things together. It might be a favorite funny show that you're watching together and then talking about it, but a time that you're engaging and really being present with one another and not just passively coexisting and sludging through this time. Okay, so those were six areas. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing on the family time. Create a family bucket list. You know, when this is all said and done, what were some things that you did as a family? What were some things that you guys accomplished? It can be a painting project. It can be some of that stuff, but fun time together. Homemade ice cream, you know, something like that. So we have the 6 categories: learning time, outside time, curiosity time, chore time, quiet time, and family time. It doesn't matter the order. There's no bells ringing. And some can be lengthened and some can be shortened. Okay. And that feeds really well right into my next section, which is connection over correction. So good, bad, or ugly, in homeschooling, you have a lot of time with your kids. So you're in crisis schooling. So you have all of this time. You are going to have more. If you had arguments before, they're of course going to increase. You can't help it. But if you focus on that connection over correction, or your connection over the task at hand, that's going to be what drives you through this. You're not just parenting during this month, 3-month time. You're parenting for a lifetime. I don't know about you, but I really want to be the parent who has their kids come back when they're 30 and say, "Hey, Mom, I want to ask you a question. I want to have that relationship." So what you're doing now is planting some of those seeds for that time. So the first thing is, what I want you to do is put yourself in their shoes. So just think right now. So if you have, you know, a junior, I have a junior, and they're missing their final season of something, of a sport. They're missing a prom. They're missing running out. They have a driver's license and a vehicle, and they're used to going, and all this independence. I want you to put yourself in their shoes and develop some empathy of what they're going through. I know you're going through something as a parent, but in order to connect with my kid, I have to put myself in their shoes. I can't just yell at them like, "You think you're going through stuff? I'm going through stuff." I want you to be able to say, "I get it. I remember what it was like to be a junior. I remember what it was like to be a 5th grader. I remember what it was like to want to go out in the street and hug my friend or ride bikes with them, and now I can't." So I want you to just put yourself in their shoes and talk to them about that. Share that experience with them. Let them know that you feel what they're feeling. That connection is what you need to do in order to later then correct them on their math. In fact, this is what the best school teachers do too, is the mantra of kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so the best school teachers that I saw in action were the ones who really cared about the kid as a person. not just about their academic grade. And that's what you have. You have like this dual role as a parent and a teacher. So you want to be able to speak to that personhood of them and not just that student of them. So take off the teacher hat. That's really not your role in this right now. It's your parent hat. And so that connection. But I would argue, even as a long-term homeschooler, that was always my role, was to connect with my kid. So do that first. If I have to pick getting math done today and having a relationship with my kid, even if it means I have to walk away, I'm going to pick the relationship every time, because I can always add back math. I can't add back my relationship with my kid. So as tensions rise, and they're going to, how could they not? We're all living in this unknown time, right? Side note, watch the news level. Like, do not let your children or yourself be steeped in the news level. Really limit to once, twice a day, maybe, for yourself. In fact, I usually say to parents at this stage, we kind of know what's going on. Once or twice a week is even enough for most of us. But for your kid, less is more. They just need to know how it affects them on this given day at the elementary level. But watch your high school kiddos for that, because that brings in the depression. Okay, so connection over correction. Okay, I'm going to talk a little practically about that connection piece that oftentimes we want to turn into their teacher, and we want to say, did you complete this, and this? And that's part of your role slightly, with their accountability to the school, but more so it's an opportunity for them to step up, for them to create their list. So when I talked about that academic time of them being ready for you, or even possibly in that greet the day moment, have them come to you with their list. Hey, Mom, this is on my list today. This is my 5 things I've got to get done. Great, great. Then come back to me, check in with me at lunch. How far did you get? How much do you have left? Do you need to take a break? So that's my high school kid. Again, elementary looks a little bit different, but your middle school and high school kids can create their own list. For elementary, I'm creating the list, and then we're checking them off as they go. You hit a bump in the road and you can't have that good day, then you need to set it aside. If you don't do math today, they are going to survive. When I worked in the school systems, I would have teachers wind up in my office in tears going, I don't know, we had such an off day. I think I didn't do anything all day. And they were talking about a classroom of 25 to 30 kids that they impacted. So certainly if you're having an off day with 3 to, I think one of my friends has 8 kids. If you impact 8 kids, that's still not 30 for a whole day. You'll have a chance to make that up. So lower your expectations, have grace with yourself. This cannot be a time where you pick the battle of getting every box checked. But if they come to you with the box, that's a different relationship piece that empowers them. All right, so we talked about patterns and routines. We talked about the schedule. The schedule is not a schedule, it's more of a pattern. And then we talked about connection over correction. The next piece I'd like to shift to is outside resources. You're not doing this alone. A lot of the schools are offering phenomenal help and support. Some of them are doing Zoom calls. I'm hearing all sorts of things. And then I'm hearing there's a lot of glitches, which naturally there would be. So I just want you to think about outside kind of backups for that day that maybe you have more meetings or you don't know how to do it. It's totally fine. So the first one is take virtual field trips. The school might be replicating the work, but they are certainly not replicating the field trips. So look up, have some fun with that. That could be part of your family time. What are some virtual field trips you and your family can be doing? Another one is those patterns of connection for them outside of you and for yourself. So I know in our practice, we're doing a lot of Zoom calls for our social skills groups, and this is a great time for kids to get to connect with one another. And I would encourage you to set those up for your kiddos. One of my friends did a Lego group where the kids create a Lego creation, and then they share the creation and talk a little bit about it. So you can do that as young as 5 to do a Zoom call and sharing a Lego creation. They are going to miss their peers. They're going to miss being around other people, but so are you. So schedule yourself a Zoom happy hour or a Zoom morning coffee on Saturday. Get that connection time for you, because that's what fuels you. So other resources, that's the social part of it, the field trip part of it, but there's a lot of really good practical online materials for homeschooling. A lot of people will say to me, gosh, Angie, you really know chemistry that well? No, I don't, right? And so, but Khan Academy does. So Khan Academy is free, it's online. Rosetta Stone is free right now for foreign languages for anybody. ABC Mouse is a younger one. Teaching Textbooks is a math program. They're offering free math for third grade on up, visual. Photo math is something you can even do on, if there's a one math problem you're stuck on, you can take a picture of it and it will show you how to do that problem. But beyond that, the libraries are still doing their tutoring services. I just heard of a new one last week called GoPure.com, and those are some of our college kiddos. Stanford, Harvard, all of those kiddos are offering free online tutoring. Obviously, use your discretion and be involved in that so that you can make sure it's safe for your kiddo. But you're not doing this alone. There's other outside resources. Okay. All right. So that's just some of the other resources. I think now I would love to switch to some of the questions. Some of these were questions, like I said, that my friends, or a couple of them are from my niece, who's an ER nurse in Minnesota. And one, I think that's just in. So I'm going to start with, what do you do if I have to be on work calls all day? So as a homeschooler, I worked part-time and I had the luxury of being available for my kids all day. So you may be at home being a homeschooler. Again, we're calling it homeschooling, is crisis schooling. You're doing crisis schooling when you're still trying to work full-time. So it is totally okay. Remember, we talked about this is just patterns of routine. Shift that learning time to when you're available. I would have that be a time where you could go back and ask them, oh, Sydney, I didn't get that question, just so you know. But one of the things with the work calls is shift your learning time to when you're available. Give them what they can do completely on their own. Okay. What do I do when I don't know what they're learning? You look it up. That's part of the skill you're teaching them is if you don't know, who does? In this age of the internet, we can look things up. So I want you to be able to look that up and ask that question to the internet. Ask it to a peer. It could be a great time to connect with other kiddos. Did you understand how to do that problem? You certainly do not need to know everything that your kid knows. All right. How do I do a different attention spans? I spoke to that a little bit earlier, but you chunk it up based on your kiddo. If you have an active kiddo, first of all, they're not the one who's going to sit at the desk ever. I think my kid rotated like chairs in the living room, and even did spelling in the rebounder in the house. So you get creative with how it looks for that particular kiddo, and you chunk it based on their attention level. Once you've lost their attention level, they don't need to sit in that class any longer. They can shift. There's no point to it. So get them moving around when you can. Another big question is, how long should a kid do school for? Well, even in homeschooling, the mandatory requirement was 4 hours a day. I think all bets are off right now. They are if you can get it done, I guess I would say is absolutely no more than 4 hours a day, unless you have a kid taking dual enrollment classes at a community college. That looks probably a bit different. But outside of that, your younger kids, no more than probably 2.5 hours chunked up. And your older kids, you want to be able to give them the freedom to do it when they need to. All right, one more question in here. Should parents monitor live Zoom calls during school to make sure the kids are paying attention? Well, that kind of hovers on that helicopter parenting thing. I would make sure that they're not doing something inappropriate, but do I have the time to police every little thing? Is there already a consequence in place if they're not? What I have found as a facilitator of Zoom calls is I can tell the kid that's not paying attention. Now they're going to have maybe a classroom of 30 versus I maybe never have more than 10 kids in a group. And so I can see what they're doing, but the teachers will know based on their level of work that they're turning in. And so I would say the relationship over, that connection over correction. So if it's going to cost you the ability to connect with your kid, to completely call them out, and I would say that's probably true of your high school kids. If you're policing your high school kids, are you going to go with them to college and police them there? No. So I would let them ride that out and learn that out for themselves. In an elementary school kid, I might teach them the cues of how they need to do that, and be present, just like I was saying before, that their learning time is a time that you need to sit with them. But the middle school age, their teachers are going to be wise to them. They're gonna throw out the quiz questions, and they're going to know who's participating and who's not. But you also have to remember these Zoom calls are the only social time that they're getting. So if they're being a little distracted, well, shoot, aren't you distracted too? So I would err on the side of grace right now. Zoom call teaching is not going to be forever, and so two things is that it's gonna come out in their ability to complete the work. And then the other piece is they need a little social time. I mean, if we could, we would let our kids sign into a school classroom and just hang out with their friends for 10 minutes before class, because there's always downtime in class, either in passing periods or when the teacher is getting the next, lab set up or whatever. So they're missing that. So if they're being a little bit distracted, I would err on the side of just letting them kind of do what they need to do. All right. I'm going to take one more question. And, ooh, this is a good one. What do you do when you're both angry? Anybody been angry lately? Yeah, you're going to get on each other's nerves a little bit. You can't put any information in when you're angry. So when you're in closed quarters, when you're all in the same house, I would still encourage, you can still go for a walk. You can separate spaces. That is not your learning time. That is never going to be your learning time. You can't input knowledge in when you're angry. You can't input knowledge in when your brain is in fight or flight mode. So you have to get to a calm space first. That's for you and for your kiddo. If your kiddo won't go to their own space, you leave to go to your own space. And that's even more present in this crisis schooling, is that you're going to have more of those blow-ups. You're going to have more of those frayed nerves. So expect it. Give a lot of grace and lower your expectation. Schools across the board are lowering the expectation because they know your brain is being hijacked right now. You're thinking about a lot of other things. So I really want you to have grace with yourself, have grace with your kiddo. That's my biggest thing. I guess just to wrap it up, I want you to think about when in 5 years, when your kids look back on this time, when you look back on this time, what are you going to say to yourself about this time? Were you going to say, yeah, that was pure torture? Or are you going to say, yeah, it was really, really hard. But you know what we did? We did a game night with another family on a Zoom call. We painted that wall, and we did a mural, and it didn't turn out and we had to paint over it. Or are you going to say that we came up with some creative ways? We built a birdhouse all together and had a decorating contest for the cupcakes. Are you going to be able to say those things? Or are you going to say, we all just barely survived? Because I want you to have some remnants of good in this. So just overall, I want you to think about those pieces: routines, not schedule; connection over correction, and you're not alone. There's lots of resources. And Nippenberg is one of those. If you are in a point where you're in crisis or your kiddo's in crisis, reach out. A lot of the counseling agencies, not just us, are opening up their doors to teletherapy. You're still able to see people in person if you prefer that as well. But reach out. You're not alone. You don't have to do this alone. Thanks for watching.